citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation episode 105. I'm Jeff, and if this is your first time here, welcome to your one-stop weekly shop for everything independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. Today we'll check out every new indie releasing from March 1st through the 7th, and after that we'll click on the eShop's Great Deals tab and help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced. Nindie Nation hits YouTube each and every Tuesday, and if you prefer to listen, we've got an audio podcast feed which is hosted by our friends at the Nintendo Village. On Thursdays, we hang out on stream to check out a couple new releases during Nindies Nite, and if you can't join us this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern, you can always catch the replay later. Follow us on Twitter at Nindie Nation for all the latest updates and indie game shenanigans, and join the ever-growing community of citizens over in the Nindie Nation Discord server. This week's stream is going to be on Twitch, so definitely stay tuned because I'm testing a few things out and I have no idea what I'm doing. Check out the description, Twitter, and Discord for more information. Now it's time to chat Nindies, but before we talk about what's new, we first have to take a look at what we missed since our last recording. And I'm warning you ahead of time that while we usually try to separate the standouts from the pack, there's, well, you can probably keep your wallets at bay for this section, citizens. These are the 7 neglected Nindies that released since episode 104. Given the whole premise of neglected Nindies, it sure is fitting that in February we've seen a bunch of Halloween games, isn't it? Cubite Interactive released Spooky Chase for $2.49, and it's a side-scrolling platformer developed by Burning Goat Studio. That's a new one. There's a system where when you hit a checkpoint, your previously recorded moves turn into monsters that chase you, which is kinda neat, but it's this part of the description that really gets me.
This time, you gonna run away from your own past. Watch out for every step you made and don't give up. If it has someone who can defeat you, it is you.
Filed under the category "You Almost Had Me for a Second There" is Ocean Media's $10 release of 1912 Titanic Mystery. You're on the Titanic II, a replica of the cruise ship that was so good they apparently decided to make it again, and there's a bomb aboard with you as apparently the only one who can disarm it. It turns out the game is actually just a collection of static images where you find hidden objects and there's an occasional minigame, but it makes me wonder if one of those minigames is painting Kate Winslet. And then we get one of those, not sure Nindies with SC Ovalex Soft's Real Driving Simulator for $14.90. Probably safe to assume it's not very good, but the screenshots make it actually look not terrible? Let me know if you want to use that quote in your marketing gang. The Nindie no-nos this week are something else. You ready? Here we go! Remember last week when Ultimate Games released
Lawnmower Game Racing?
Well, they also snuck out
Lawnmower Game Next Generation
for $4.99. It's the same asset swap demo, but instead of racing, you mow. And not only do you mow, but you mow in this nightmarish world that looks like the Lawnmower Man. Whoa, is that a coincidence? I haven't even thought about that before. Holy crap, my brain just exploded. Is this game about lawn mowing because it looks like the Lawnmower Man? Is this... Whoa. Maybe they're smarter than I gave them credit for. Hold on, I gotta go something out. I gotta read something. I gotta pack. I gotta get my stuff ready. I just gotta... Radon Blast is a $4 breakout clone by Ntwickler X. Not too offensive, but I'm sure as hell not gonna recommend it. InLogic and Cool Small Games made the exact opposite of their namesake with My Coloring Book, and it seems like a fairly effective way to jam your finger into your Switch's screen while also spending $5. And then good old Kobador Yazalim put out Drift Racing Madness for $4.79, which probably plays best if you forgot to charge your Switch. This is where I usually ask if you're interested in any of these, but, well, this week I think we're just gonna move on. The Twitter Nindie Nation, these are the 24 new release Nindies hitting the eShop from March 1st through the 7th. We kick off the month of March with a pair of indie releases. A Glider's Journey is the first, and it is all about third-person flight developed by Emma Franklin and Charlie Marshall. Don't let the charming, low-poly environments fool you, though. This is a very challenging game, and even though it only has 15 levels, you'll be working your way through it for a bit longer than you expect. The whole game is controlled by one joystick, and your goal is to just fly through hoops, but it received pretty positive reviews when it released on Steam, and when it launches this week, you can pick it up for $9.90. And it's been a while since we've seen a release from Orange Pixel, but this fairly new publisher has a knack for bringing some of the better, smaller indie games from mobile and PC and giving them a new life on the Switch. This week, they bring Gunslugs 2 for $6.79, and if an action-packed running gun is up your alley, look no further. It's essentially like a Contra or Metal Slug, but starring the A-Team, and I certainly don't pity the fool who considers picking up this pixelated romp. The sole title releasing on March 2nd is the Switch port of a mobile game, Paco Caravan by Tree Men Games. They say,
"It's like a conga line, but with cars."
And they're not far off. You build a caravan of cars and then play out a more robust version of Snake across 15 levels. It is cute and it looks fun, but I don't know if there's $8 of fun there, so probably hold off until there's a sale if you're really interested. 5 games release on Wednesday, March 3rd, the first of which is 3 out of 10 Season 1 by Terrible Posture Games, and if this isn't a game fit for this show's audience, I don't know what is. It's pinned as the first playable sitcom that follows a game studio who is trying to make their first not terrible game. There's a lot of R-rated humor here, and the trailer is pretty funny, so do check it out. The game itself is about 3 to 4 hours long and features mostly visual novel gameplay with a couple mini-games, but seriously, it's $10 and I think it looks hilarious. I have no idea if the gameplay itself is good, but that's not really the focus. It's fairly short, it's reasonably priced, it's had pretty good reviews on Steam, and it's completely different. I'm going to be picking this one up for sure. Gravifire is a top-down sliding block puzzle game set in space, and it releases by Sometimes You for $3.99. Nothing really new here, but it doesn't seem to do anything wrong either. That's another good back-of-the-box quote.
Cave Bad
Is East Asia Soft's release for this week, and I'm digging this one too. It's an NES-inspired dungeon crawler that pulls some ideas from the Bomberman series, and we'll see, but I really like the music, and I think it might be featured in this week's episode. It borrows ideas from a lot of roguelikes and includes procedurally generated levels, rogue-like mechanics, and it launches for $4.99. I'm sorry I did that. That was mean. But, it doesn't have RPG elements, so what'd you expect me to do? Wind Peaks is another
Find the Item in the Picture
game, and this one is by Actun Studio for $14.99. I do like the hand-drawn visuals, and it's nice that it has animated elements. Quite a low bar, huh? But $15 for this one is just too much, even if there is animation. Sir Love-A-Lot is the next pixelated challenging platformer for the Switch. This one is developed by Pixel Games. Oh, fitting. And it looks like it has just a boatload of levels, which is nice for $7.99, but otherwise it isn't really doing anything too exciting. The Big Thursday drop is up next, and it's coming in hot with some hot garbage because Alcyone Studio is releasing their first Switch title, well, kinda. It's called Sticky Monsters. It's a mobile match 4 puzzle game. It can only be played in handheld mode, and only in vertical orientation. It's much less of a port than it is just them finding the easiest way to make this $5 dumpster fire actually launch on a Switch console. And this is exactly the kind of thing that Nintendo should not be allowing on the eShop. Speaking of shoddy mobile games, Zordix, who is, I think, the name of the floating blue head in the Power Rangers, is releasing Give It Up Bouncy for $9.99, and you bounce a ball through a puzzle. Here's an interesting one. Sea of Solitude released for the PS4 and Xbox in 2019 and was widely acclaimed for its action-adventure approach to tackling some pretty deep emotional subject matter. The gameplay is kinda like a really light, indie, third-person action-adventure with some cool visuals, and the reception was pretty mixed depending on if the narrative tones hit with whomever was reviewing it. What's interesting to me is that the original title was indeed an indie game, but it was funded by Electronic Arts, so thus it is not an indie. However, the Switch port is a director's cut with a bunch of updated content and is published by Quantic Dream, known best for games like Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human for the PlayStation. Except now they are a publisher of, I guess, indie games. Not even sure if I should cover this one. Probably not, but it just struck me as really odd because there's a case to be made either way. It releases for $20, and I strongly suggest you read a lot more about it and go pick up the demo for yourself, because everybody's going to have a different experience with this game depending on where they're coming from and how they view the material.
Are you American to spend $10 on one of the most generic shooters to ever take place in a big box of sand with generic gray boxes that look like buildings?
Polygon Art bets at least a few of us are when they release Task Force Delta Afghanistan, but I think you know better. Oh hey, remember last week when I said we've got a game about a mail delivering mole? Well, here we are. Mail Mole comes by way of Talpa Games and Under Games for $15, and I kinda like it. It's a 3D platformer with a charming presentation that is super heavily inspired by the Mario games. In the trailer alone, I can see levels that are directly inspired by very specific levels in Mario Galaxy and 3D World, and the character moveset is almost identical to Galaxy. I don't know much about the teams behind this game, but when Mail Mole goes on sale, I just might give it a shot. And here's one for those of you just really looking for something to totally bum you out. Into a Dream by Felipe F. Tomaz and Top Hat Studios is a cinematic adventure told through a lot of narrative while walking slowly and occasional puzzle solving. I will say that its art direction is really slick though, with lots of light blooms and bold colors set against a silhouette foreground. It's definitely got that going for it. Story-wise, it's about a guy in a coma and you're reliving his life as he hears everyone in the waking world tell super sad stories about him. If you're interested in hearing the story of Luke Williams and learning if he'll ever wake up from his deep sleep, it'll run you $11.89. Upon first glance, I was ready to dismiss Indie Nova's Duel on Board as just another
multiplayer party game with a gimmick.
But then I, researched it because that's what I do for you people, even if sometimes I think it's gonna kill me. First off, this is a one-on-one multiplayer game, so it makes it a lot easier to play if you've only got to get together with one other person. The premise is that you and another pirate start on the edge of a ship and need to reach the beer in the middle. You shoot at each other and dodge hazards along the way, kinda like Nidhogg, and then when you reach close quarters, you engage in a button-mashing duel. In addition, there's modes where you have to deal with ghosts, where you have to build a tag team of various different types of pirates, and there's even soccer on a pirate ship. And that sounds fun. It's $7.99, so it is reasonably priced, and if you've got one other gamer in the house, this could be a really fun game to add to your repertoire. Kill It With Fire is a title I think of making almost each week's episode at one point or another, and it's also the name of this week's release by Tiny Build Games. If you've been on the internet for more than a minute, you know that
Kill It With Fire
is usually a response to images of spiders, and the developer has taken that premise to a whole new level. In a first-person view, you use all sorts of gadgets to hunt down exactly where a spider is inside of any number of various locations, and once you do find them, yes,
kill it with fire!
You blow them up, you shoot them, you throw ninja stars at them, you just burn the whole building down, and it's all done as a silly physics game. I think this one looks like pretty good, dumb fun, but unfortunately it's priced at $14.99. Now, it launches this week for $11.99, but even then, I'd probably wait for another sale because this is definitely one of those games that will be $5 or $7 before we know it. Publisher
Playism
releases a game that was revealed to great interest during the last Indie World presentation, and Petite Depot's Gnosia might be best described by just watching the trailer, but I'm going to take a stab at it anyway. Essentially, it's Among Us, but developed as a single-player anime horror visual novel. You and other characters are on a spaceship, you do menial tasks, talk to characters, and your goal is to figure out who the Gnosia is before they kill everyone off. It adds much more narrative than we usually see in games like this, and it even has some RPG elements as well. But otherwise, yeah, it's Among Us, just built as a single-player anime horror adventure. Not a bad premise if you ask me, but it launches for $24.99, so let's wait for some reviews first. A quick peek at how the sausage is made, because you may have noticed this in the past, but sometimes I'll say something like,
There's not even a trailer for this game.
but then you're sitting here watching the video and you see a trailer. That's because I write over the weekend and record on Sunday, but then I make the video on Tuesday just before posting it. And usually there's a couple of games that have a trailer that go live in between those 2 days. I'll bet that happens with our next game, or at least I hope it does. I hope you're watching a trailer right now, because it looks pretty interesting, but without a trailer, it's really hard to figure out what it is. That game is Everhood, an ineffable tale of the inexpressible divine moments of truth. Phew! It's $15, it has no publisher or developer listed, and it claims to be a music-based game with a 5 to 6 hour story. It looks like a bunch of retro game tropes with some arcade motorcycle action, some 8-bit Guitar Hero, and some twin-stick shooting thrown in. I really have no idea what this game is or who made it, but it seems kinda neat regardless. Hopefully you've spent the last minute or so watching a trailer and it looks worth wishlisting while we wait for a sale. Counter Recon, the first mission, is a cheap ripoff of Call of Duty. It's $15 and is developed by
Trues.
One of my favorite parts of covering indies is when you get the title that was developed by just one single person. And that's exactly what we've got this week with Estranged: The Departure by Alan Edwards. It's a first-person adventure about a fisherman who is stranded on an island after getting caught up in a violent storm. He comes to realize he's on some kind of spooky experimental island owned by an evil corporation, and he just needs to find a way to get home. There's a little bit of shooting and a few puzzles here and there, but for the most part, you're exploring the island over a few hours and witnessing the narrative unfold. At only $5.99, Estranged: The Departure could be a really interesting little adventure that is worth taking. And the last game to release on this week's Big Thursday drop is Super Met Boy. Yes, Met Boy. If you've ever played any of the many multiplayer Kirby games Nintendo has been releasing since the 3DS, that's exactly what this is here. The extent to which Fly High Works and Rebuild Games rips off the Kirby universe is shameless to say the least, and since you can pick up titles like Super Kirby Clash for free, there's, unfortunately, not really a reason to give this game $9.99. Rounding out the week, we've got 3 more titles releasing on Friday, March 5th, but the first one is America Wild Hunting by Pigs Farts, so it's really just 2 more games. Nina is a janky little twin-stick shooter where you play as a robot that can't do anything on his own but can possess enemies around him. It's $4.99 and releases by Something Games. This game is something, alright. And the last release for the week is one that might actually make for a pretty funny stream or let's play, but I'm certainly not recommending you purchase it for yourself. Doug Hates His Job basically takes the premise of Office Space or The Office, builds a mockumentary commentary about office life, and sets you off on a bunch of bite-sized gameplay loops like top-down driving, side-scrolling brawling, 3D dungeon crawling, and more. It uses a low-poly art style, launches for $4.89, and is developed by Supervillain Games. Cool studio name, though. I'll be honest, I'm not seeing a ton here for me this week. What about you? I am very interested in 3 out of 10, so I'll probably pick that up, but otherwise, games like Gnosia, Cave Bad, and Gunslugs all look okay, but they'll probably just go on my wish list for a future sale. Drop what you're considering in the YouTube comments, and if you want to see any of these in this week's Nindies at Night, let me know there as well. Thankfully though, we've got some great deals this week. They run the gamut from all-time greats to smaller titles that we haven't featured in a long time. There's some weird timing on the games currently discounted though, and that usually hints toward an Indie World presentation, so I'll just say it now, I think we might get one this coming week. Anyways, with 384 games currently on sale on the eShop, these are the 10 indies on sale at their lowest prices ever through at least March 7th. Look a funny pic, here's another pic. Except this one, which is only available through the 5th, but it's just too good of a deal to pass up. Roundguard is the wonderful mix of Peggle and a roguelike RPG. You have that awesome gameplay of launching a ball at various targets and watching the satisfying physics at play, and then mix in a bunch of silly fantasy themes and self-aware humor, and then just to make things interesting, you throw in procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! And you've got yourself Roundguard. Right now, Roundguard is 55% off for $8.93, and that right there is a great deal on one of the best games of 2020. A bunch of Forever Entertainment titles are on sale this week, and I suggest picking up a couple of them because then you get a permanent 33% off discount on any of their releases in the future. Binary Star Infinity is the excellent 1-bit side-scrolling shoot-'em-up we played a couple of weeks back on Nindies at Night, and if you're into that genre, it's currently 33% off for just $3.34, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Go check out the Nindies at Night episode if you want to see more of it. We actually had the developer of the game in the chat with us the whole time, so you'll hear me talking to him off and on throughout the gameplay as well. If you want to check out more of the Forever Entertainment catalog, this week Packmaster is on sale, which is a fun puzzle game about packing a suitcase. So it's like Tetris meets real life back into a puzzle game, and it's 60% off for $1.99. And then of course there's my beloved Tawaga Among Shadows, the super unique pseudo twin-stick shooter that is more like an active tower defense, and it was also one of my favorite 20 games of 2020. If you want to check that one out, it is currently 85% off for just $2.24 and was featured in part 3 of our best Nindies of 2020. I know, I've got 2 more to go. I'm working on them. I swear, every time I turn around, I'm seeing another love letter posted somewhere about Monster Sanctuary, and it isn't hard to see why. Take the tried and true Metroidvania formula and blend it with Pokemon capturing, raising, and battling, and you've got yourself a truly unique game that seems to be slowly catching more and more people by surprise each and every day. This week, it is seeing its best price ever with a 25% off discount for only $14.99. Crown Trick is a title I have yet to play, but boy do you citizens of Nindie Nation love it, and so do pretty much every other indie outlet. It's a roguelike dungeon crawler that plays as a turn-based strategy RPG, and it's been universally praised for its art style and dynamic combat. Right now it's also 25% off for $14.99 and includes procedurally generated dungeons, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! Speaking of trifectas, let's just go crazy. What do you say? I've not been shy about my love for Fury Unleashed, and every time it's on sale, I'll suggest trying the demo to see if this 80s-inspired side-scroller through a run-and-gun comic book is right for you. It's half off this week for $9.99 and comes complete with procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! But only if you play on normal or hard difficulties. If you play on the more intense levels, it's permadeath. And speaking of some of my favorite indies available, what a great time to discuss Children of Morta. You know the drill. Wonderful Diablo-style gameplay, multiple characters and modes to extend the replay value, incredible narrative that told a compelling story inside a roguelike even before Hades did, and right now it's cheaper than ever. As Nindie Nation's 2019 Game of the Year, I think Children of Morta, half off for $11, is an excellent pick for just about anyone. And yes, it includes procedurally generated dungeons, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! Every time I mention this next title, someone ends up reaching out to me to say how glad they were that they got to play The Way Remastered. It's a side-scrolling adventure game, mostly of the puzzle and narrative type, about a man searching for a way to revive his lost loved one. The presentation, story, and music are all really well done, and the journey itself is about 6 or 7 hours long. At 87% off, $1.99 makes this one of the cheaper trips worth taking, and I suggest you do. And finally today, we're going to end with a game that was one of my earliest indie impulse buys on the Switch, and that is Devious Dungeon, which is half off for $3.99. It's a mindless side-scrolling platformer where you just beat things up and then use coins to buy more things. And then you can use the new things to beat up bigger things and get more coins, and then all of a sudden, 5 hours later, you're at the end. Sometimes you can clip through a wall to find a secret, and sometimes there's a boss, but otherwise, it's just mindless, and it's fun. I had a good time with it, and I think most of you will as well, especially for only $4. Not a bad list of games if I do say so myself. What do you think? If you're picking one of these up, or if you already have it and want to tell others that you think they should get it, drop a note in the YouTube comments. Well, we've looked back, we've looked ahead, and we've filled your backlog. So now, my friends, that means we've reached the end of this week's episode. Don't forget that this week's Nindies at Night will still be at 10 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, as always, but it will now, for at least through the month of March, be hosted on twitch.tv/NindieNation. I'm hoping that splitting up the streams from the regular content helps the YouTube algorithm, because it's been very mean to us recently. It's just a little test for a few weeks, and then we'll reevaluate. If you're able to stop by and drop Nindie Nation a follow, we'd be eternally grateful. Don't forget to join the Nindie Nation Discord and follow us on Twitter at Nindie Nation too. Chatting about video games and general life happenings with all of you is always a pleasure, so I hope to see more of you around. If you're watching on YouTube, please drop a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget that new episodes hit YouTube each and every Tuesday. If you can't catch us on YouTube, don't fret though, because we're also available via podcast feeds hosted by the Nintendo Village. And let me tell you, if you're looking for anything else Nintendo related, news, reviews, features, videos, whatever, the team over there does a great job. So go check them out at thenintendovillage.com and tell them that Nindie Nation sent you. Also, tell Phil that Jeff said he has beautiful hair. Next week is a pretty big week for the AAA titles on the Switch, but that doesn't seem to be scaring the indies away at all. We've got a new game by the Quantum Astrophysicists Guild, a definitive edition of a classic indie great, and we're finally, maybe, seeing the release of an adventure game that has been dated and moved last minute 3 times so far. We'll have to check on all of those next week though, citizens, because as far as this episode is concerned, we've reached the end. Thanks so much for watching, for chatting, for commenting, for joining us on all the platforms, and I really hope you can join us this Thursday on Twitch. Until then, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 105, and remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.